When people in London speak about the Kensington Wynthorpe family, they speak in lowered voices. They talk about money that flows through generations, estates older than some countries, and a name that carries weight in politics, philanthropy, and business. But what no one outside the mansion walls ever knew was that one of the most powerful families in the United Kingdom once relied on a Filipino nanny quiet, small, polite, humble to make decisions that shaped their entire legacy. Her name was Lila Mendoza, and her story does not begin in London, but in a barangay in Iloilo, where she grew up as the eldest daughter of a fisherman and a factory worker. She had dreams, once simple ones, like finishing college and opening a small bakery, but life has a habit of pushing people where it wants them to go. And in her case, that path led her to become an OFW. At 28 years old, she applied for a job as a nanny in the UK through a small agency. She didn't expect to be hired by anyone extraordinary. She imagined she would work for an ordinary family, wake the kids, prepare breakfast, clean, sleep, repeat. But weeks later, her name was shortlisted by a family she had never heard of, the Wynthorpes. The agency whispered that they were beyond wealthy, one of those families newspapers called old money. Lila did not care about wealth. She only cared about earning enough for her siblings' schooling. But the Wynthorpes cared about her, or rather, about her resume. Her English was clean and polite, her references glowing, her demeanor calm. And so, without fully understanding what awaited her, she boarded a plane to Heathrow Airport. The Wynthorpe mansion in Kensington looked like something pulled from a movie. Massive stone walls, tall windows, ivy crawling across old brick. Lila's hands trembled when she entered. She felt that her slippers back home had more right to be in the building than she did. Waiting inside was the family, Sir Bernard Wynthorpe, a respected businessman with a voice that could silence boardrooms. His wife, Lady Helena, tall and elegant, whose presence made every room feel colder. And their two children, Christopher, age 9, quiet and withdrawn, and Amelia, age 7, lively but spoiled. Lila bowed, introduced herself softly, and was immediately struck by something strange. It wasn't the house, or the wealth, or the way the mother looked at her as if she were made of glass. It was the father's eyes, calculated, almost observing, as if he expected to see weakness, and she disappointed him because she didn't show any. Her first weeks were ordinary. She woke early, managed the children's routines, learned the house rules, memorized which rooms she wasn't allowed to enter. She moved with the careful silence of someone who knew the cost of mistakes. She never talked back, never complained, never even sighed too loudly. And slowly, without her noticing, the atmosphere around her softened. Christopher, who rarely spoke, began answering her questions. Amelia, who used to scream when things didn't go her way, stopped throwing tantrums around her. Even the cold Lady Helena began greeting her in the mornings, short, stiff nods, but nods nonetheless. What no one expected was that Lila had something the Wynthorpe family lacked: intuition wrapped in kindness, firmness wrapped in gentleness, and the quiet intelligence of someone who grew up solving problems without luxury. The first incident happened 3 months after she arrived. Christopher had been refusing to attend school, shutting down emotionally, and the parents were at a loss. Tutors failed, therapists failed, even expensive behavioral specialists shrugged. One night, after dinner, Sir Bernard approached her in the hallway. "You seem to manage the boy better than anyone," he said without greeting. "Why?" Lila froze. No one ever asked her for opinions, especially not someone like him. She thought carefully before answering. "I just listen, sir." Children speak even when they don't use words. He narrowed his eyes. "What do you think he's saying?" Lila hesitated, but something in the air told her the truth was needed. "He's lonely, sir, and scared to disappoint you. He thinks he must be perfect." Sir Bernard flinched. It was the first time she saw emotion cross his face. "And what do you suggest?" he asked quietly. "Let him fail sometimes. Praise him more. Be soft with him at least once a day." She said it gently, afraid she had crossed a line. But Bernard did not reprimand her. Instead, he nodded slowly, as if hearing an idea no one in his circle had dared to express. The next morning, he did exactly what she said. That day, Christopher smiled during breakfast. Word of her intuition reached Lady Helena. Soon, she began asking subtle questions about the children, what they liked, what frustrated them, how to handle their moods. Lila answered honestly, but never arrogantly. She always spoke with respect, even when her insight was sharper than the advice of their paid consultants. Her influence, though quiet, grew naturally. Then came the second incident, the one that changed everything. The Wynthorpe family was preparing for a massive business gala. Newspapers were whispering that Bernard's company was unstable. Investors were pulling out, rumors spreading. Lady Helena was stressed beyond measure. The children were restless. Staff members were tense. One night, at nearly 11 p.m., Lady Helena called Lila into her private sitting room. The woman was seated, trembling slightly, clutching a letter. Tears pooled in her eyes, something Lila had never seen. "My husband is hiding something," she whispered. "This business crisis is worse than he admits. I fear we may lose everything." Lila wanted to comfort her, but she stayed composed. "Ma'am, have you asked him?" "I can't," Helena said. "He won't speak. He shuts me out." Lila paused. Her upbringing had taught her something valuable. When people stop communicating, fear grows. Silence destroys families faster than poverty. "Ma'am," she said softly, "people only hide pain when they believe no one will understand it. If you speak with him gently, not as his wife, but as his partner, maybe he'll open." Lady Helena stared at her, surprised by the wisdom. And for the first time, she nodded in genuine gratitude. The next day, the couple spoke in private for hours. Staff whispered. The house felt tense but hopeful. And when they emerged, something had changed. They walked together, talked together, and for a brief moment looked like a united family. From that day forward, Lady Helena began requesting Lila's presence not just for the children, but during planning discussions, household meetings, even quiet midnight conversations over tea. She always introduced her as the nanny, but in private, her questions carried weight. Slowly, Lila became more than a caregiver. She became an observer, a counselor, a voice of reason. Someone who could calm the children, soothe the mother, and ground the father, all without ever asking for recognition. But it was the third incident that elevated her from silent influence to the Wynthorpe's hidden backbone. 10 months into her stay, Sir Bernard faced his greatest crisis. One of his major partners accused him publicly of financial misconduct, a claim that spiraled into headlines, legal threats, and political pressure. The family was thrown into chaos. Bernard barely slept. Helena panicked. Reporters swarmed the mansion gates. One night, near midnight, Bernard appeared in the kitchen where Lila was quietly preparing snacks for the children the next day. "You're awake," he muttered. "Yes, sir." "Preparing something for tomorrow?" He sat down, exhausted emotionally, mentally, physically. Something inside him cracked, because he suddenly spoke with the honesty of a man stripped of pride. "Everyone I trusted has turned against me," he said. "Every advisor tells me a different thing. I don't know who to believe." Lila remained silent, waiting. He continued. "You always speak plainly. You don't want anything from me, so tell me, what do I do?" She nearly dropped the spoon in her hand. The richest, most powerful man she had ever met was asking advice from her. A nanny with calloused hands and a salary barely enough to support her family. She swallowed, took a breath. "Sir," she said softly, "I cannot advise on business, but I know people. And right now, the public does not want to hear explanations. They want sincerity, they want humility. Tell the truth, whatever it is. Speak clearly, apologize if needed. People forgive honesty." Bernard stared at her as though she had revealed some ancient secret. And perhaps in his world of polished lies and constructed statements, she had. The next morning, he held a press conference. Not with PR managers, not with legal coaches. He stood alone and spoke plainly about the misunderstanding, about the pressures, about his mistakes in communication. The public reaction was shock, then relief, then support. Headlines shifted overnight. Wynthorpe breaks silence with honest statement. Investors praised transparency. Stocks recovering. Staff members whispered in disbelief. Lady Helena cried in gratitude. Christopher hugged his father tight for the first time in months. And Bernard, later that night, approached Lila with a soft nod. "Thank you," he said. "You saved my family." She bowed quickly, embarrassed, but he added, "I've had advisors my whole life, but none as honest as you." Word within the house spread. The staff began calling her the Quiet Compass. The children called her Tita. The couple began involving her in everything: family decisions, event preparations, emotional issues, even small business matters. Always privately, never publicly. Because no one outside the mansion was allowed to know that one Filipino nanny had become the Wynthorpe family secret foundation. Over the years, her role evolved into something unspoken but deeply rooted. She remained the nanny by title, but everyone in the home understood the truth. She was the emotional architect of the household, the person who helped Christopher grow into a confident teenager, the one who taught Amelia humility, the one who helped Lady Helena rediscover warmth, the one who kept Bernard grounded. She never asked for raises, although they gave her many. She never bragged, never posted online, never wrote home about her influence. She simply worked, loved, listened, and guided quietly, steadily, sincerely. By the time her 5th year with the family came, the Wynthorpes had become one of the strongest and most admired families in London again. Newspapers praised their resilience, unity, and renewed public trust. No journalist ever knew why. And every Christmas, without fail, when the family gathered around the long wooden table with sparkling wine and silver cutlery, Sir Bernard would raise a glass. He would look at his wife, then his children, then finally at the woman who stood modestly behind them. "To the one who keeps us together," he always said. To Miss Mendoza, they never allowed her to sit with them during celebrations, not out of disrespect, but because traditions in old British families are slow to change. But they always made sure she heard the toast. The children always hugged her first afterward, and Lady Helena always squeezed her hands quietly, in gratitude. When people in public asked the Wynthorpes how they rebuilt their legacy, how they maintained unity despite scandal, how they raised compassionate children, they always answered the same way. "We had the right people beside us." They never named her, and she never asked them to. Because for Lila Mendoza, her role was not to stand in the spotlight. Her role was to hold it steady so the people she served could shine. And in the quiet corners of London, behind the oldest walls and wealthiest families, sometimes the greatest influence comes from the humblest presence. A presence the world never sees, yet one that shapes everything behind the scenes. And that is how one Filipino nanny became the secret advisor of one of Britain's most powerful families, changing their lives not with wealth, not with titles, not with power, but with sincerity, wisdom, and the soft strength that only someone raised in hardship could carry with such grace.